Mr. McGarvey. Now, Mr. Nyhan, you're recognized.
Thank you, Chairman Rowe, Ranking Member Andrews, and other members of the subcommittee for the opportunity to testify today. Central States is the second largest multi-employer plan in the country, with over 410,000 participants and 1,800 participating employers, 90% of which are small employers with 50 or fewer employees. For 30 years, the fund's investments have been exclusively managed by major financial institutions, screened by the Labor Department, and approved by the federal court. Since its inception, the fund has paid out over $60 billion in pension benefits, with an average current benefit of about $15,000 per year. Since the deregulation of the trucking industry, there has been a dramatic consolidation in the transportation industry. As a result, thousands of employers have gone out of business without meeting their funding obligations, leaving the pension fund and the surviving employers with the obligation for the unfunded liability. Central States continues to be the primary insurer of the unfunded pensions of retirees for employers who have simply failed. Literally speaking, the pension fund has stood in the shoes of the PBGC for 30 years. In 1980, there were 4 actives for each inactive participant. Today, that's reversed, with nearly 5 inactives for every active participant. Last year, we collected $700 million from employers and paid nearly $2.8 billion in benefits. The $2.1 billion annual shortfall must be made up with investment returns, or the plan will spiral into insolvency. The fund has done a lot to try to correct these problems. After the first market meltdown, the fund reduced future benefit accruals by 50% and froze unreduced early retirement subsidies. Additionally, contribution rates have been ratcheted up from $170 per week back in 2003 to over $340 a week, or $8.50 an hour. As a result of these measures, the fund increased its annual revenue and reduced its projected liability. As of January 1, 2008, the fund actuaries projected the fund would be fully funded in 2029, assuming normal investment returns. However, as we know, 2008 was not a normal investment year. It was devastating, particularly for a mature plan that is dependent on investment returns in order to pay benefits. The fund experienced an investment loss of nearly $7.6 billion and paid out $1.8 billion in benefits above the contributions received from employers. Since 2008, the fund has earned positive investment returns, but its current financial condition remains troubled. Unless the fund substantially reduces its liabilities or receives a large influx of assets, it's projected to become insolvent within 10 to 15 years. And at this point, our options are very limited. The fund would need to earn at least 12 to 13% each and every year in order to avoid insolvency. That's not a realistic investment return assumption. The actuaries project that any additional cuts in benefits, the active employees, or further contribution increases above those that have already been mandated will accelerate insolvency. Under the existing legal landscape, we simply can't manage the problem. Additionally, the PBGC itself is in dire financial condition. For the last several years, we have supported legislation to update the PBGC's partition authority and appropriate the necessary funding as a remedy that would preserve the fund's solvency. That legislative proposal, had that been enacted, the benefits of our participants would have been protected. But that legislation was not enacted, and no similar legislation has been enacted in this, introduced in this Congress. As a result, in 2012, the PBGC multi-employer program had $1.8 billion in assets, but booked more than $7 billion in liabilities. Moreover, the PBGC itself projects it will incur an additional $38 billion in new claims over the next 9 years. Not surprisingly, the PBGC and GAO recently released separate reports indicating there is a substantial risk that the PBGC's multi-employer program will itself be insolvent within 10 years before the projected insolvency of Central States. If these projections are correct, the retirees covered by the fund face the stark and tragic reality that their pension checks could be eliminated in their entirety when the fund becomes insolvent. So today we are faced with the Hobson's choice of either supporting legislation that allows us to use our own assets to provide long-term retirement security at reduced levels, or doing nothing and facing the substantial risk that the retirement checks will disappear completely upon insolvency. If we do nothing and the PBGC fails, we will pay out $28 billion through date of insolvency. However, if we act, our participants will receive over $72 billion over the next 50 years. I know others argue that benefit reductions should be avoided at all costs by appropriating new revenue through taxes or premium increases. I agree. Our preferred solution has always been one that would generate additional revenue to alleviate the funding shortfalls, as evidenced by our vigorous support of past legislative proposals. But the fact of the matter is these legislative proposals got little or no support from either House, from either party, or from the administration. Rest assured, if such legislation were ever enacted in the future, we would take full advantage to restore the benefits of our participants. But the retirement security of our participants is too important to gamble on wishful thinking. Open-ended and vague theories as to how to resolve the funding problems need to give way to timely, concrete, and realistic proposals. The truth of the matter is there is no funding source anywhere on the horizon that deals with shortfalls of this magnitude, and time is running out to craft a solution. In light of that reality, we believe the only solution is one that permits us the remedy of remedying the shortfall ourselves. Thank you.
Thank you. Great job with the committee. I'll now yield